I am pleased to hand over to Amundi's head of the Institutional and Corporate Clients Division and head of ESG, Jean-Jacques Barberis, who will be moderating this segment on energy transition. Enjoy.
Thank you very much. So 2 figures. Last year, renewables have reached 30% of the total electricity production. And in the coming decade, 70% of the additional demand on electricity will come from emerging countries. It means for us, investors, if there is one thing we need to care about in the transition, is how the transition is going to happen in emerging countries. So the idea of this session is to look at the transition not with a European angle, not with an American angle, but with an Asian and an African angle. And to do that, on the Asian side, I'm very happy to call Chee from Monetary Authority of Singapore, Chief Representative in London, to start this first session. Thanks a lot for being with us today. It's a pleasure having you. So Singapore is focusing on net zero transition, and thanks to Monetary Authority in Singapore, MAS for the fellows, how government mobilization can increase mobilization of finance towards transitional assets.
All right, thanks for the question. So in 2019, MAS launched the Green Finance Action Plan. We refreshed the plan last year to include transition finance to show the focus that we're having on beyond green assets to transition finance as well. This is in recognition that transition finance is critical for the Asian region. To better serve the need of Asia, we are focusing on 3 key areas. We are focusing on standards, solutions, and skills. First, I'll talk about standards. So we believe that clear and credible standards are foundation to a trusted financial center. They can mitigate the risk of greenwashing and provide greater confidence for investors like yourself to channel legitimate capital to green and transition activity. So in this regard, MAS last year, we launched the Singapore Asia Taxonomy for Sustainable Finance. So this taxo set out detailed thresholds and criteria for defining green and transition activities that contribute to climate change mitigation. This taxo is the first in the world to pioneer the transition category. This is in recognition of the need to properly define transition for Asia. We are also working with international organizations to develop sectoral pathways that are suitable for Asia. With clearer science-based targets and pathways, financial institutions can develop strategies to steward their clients and to capitalize on financing opportunity. So that is on standards. We are also working on solutions. We are supporting innovative approach to target marginally bankable projects, and blended finance is key to our efforts. So together with our partner, last year at COP, we announced a new blended finance initiative to scale the financing for green and transition infrastructure and technology projects in Asia. The carbon market is also another area that we are working on very deeply and exploring opportunity as a financing mechanism. So here, MAS is piloting the concept of transition credit to accelerate the coal phase-out in Asia. Lastly, on scale. So for any financial center to be successful, we believe that we need a skilled and adaptable workforce that is ready for sustainable finance. So in this regard, the government has put in and committed $25 million to upskill our workforce and to develop more sustainable talent for the economy.
Thank you very much. So it means that there are taxonomies in other parts in the world than in Europe. Maybe if we get a little into practice, the acceleration of exiting coal power plants is a massive challenge. In a way, if we were all exiting coal by tomorrow, we will be on the right path globally. So how do you think asset owners and asset managers have a role there, and what is the dialogue you have with them on that front?
Okay. So I'll talk about 2 areas. Going back to a key theme that I mentioned just now about standards and solutions. So on standards, MAS has been providing important guidance on key elements on coal phase-out. So earlier, I mentioned about taxonomy. So on taxonomy, there is clear criteria on how investing in coal phase-out can be classified and considered as transition. We are also working on consultation paper, setting out our supervisory expectation on transition planning. So in this guidance, we provide for situation acknowledging that transmission emission may increase in the short term due to actions supporting longer-term goals. So beyond standards, we are also exploring solutions. We need to tackle the economic case for coal phase-out. That's why MES has launched a working paper on whether carbon credit can play a role to accelerate early retirement of coal plants. So in theory, we believe that high-integrity carbon credits can be generated from avoided emission due to retirement of coal plants. The additional revenue from selling this carbon credit could significantly increase the economic case for the retirement of the plants. So in COP last year, we launched 2 pilot projects to explore and test this concept with our partners in Asia. So if successful, carbon credit can be a market-driven financing solution to tackle this very important issue. And to bring this forward, we have convened an industry group comprising of 30 industry members to identify system-wide barriers and to develop solutions for transition credit to be upskilled. We call this group Traction.
Thank you very much. You mentioned the word blended finance, which is a word that has been often used in that very room over years. Can you explain a little bit more what you're doing on that front? MES is part of the network of central banks greening the financial system. I think you've been a pioneer there. So how do you see the role of blended finance on that front? And again, how do you make it practically a reality at the service of the transition?
Okay. As I mentioned at the very start, blended finance is key to our mission in Asia. So we are exploring various initiatives into upskilling blended finance. But before the solution, so what are the key problems that we have identified in the area of blended finance to address them and to upskill? So one key area that we noticed is we need more risk-tolerant capital. So philanthropic and concessional providers can play a very catalytic role in unlocking more investments. They can provide risk-tolerant capital to advance projects that are marginally bankable currently. They play a very powerful de-risking role and can enable multiples of commercial investment and capital to be crowded in. So the first is we need more risk-tolerant capital. Second, we need to adopt a more risk-centric approach. So we need to design structures and partnerships with risk mitigation considered upfront. So a good blended finance structure will bring together different partners who can take on different risks. And third, we need to do better at de-risking blended finance to crowd in more capital. So we are looking at developing more granular risk assessment and innovating with our partners for more tools that can help us de-risk blended finance. So in this regard, last year, MES announced the Financing Asia Transition Partnership, a very long name. We call it FAST-P. So FAST-P seeks to address all these 3 issues that I mentioned earlier. So this is a blended finance platform with a target of 5 billion in funding. So this 5 billion will be used for financing transition and marginally bankable green projects in Asia. So the Singapore government is stepping into this platform, and we have committed to contribute concessional capital to support this platform. And with this concessional capital, we hope to crowd in more commercial capital together.
So if you want,
Yeah,
there to
you are
join the
welcome, our
platform,
partners.
you're welcome, you have the right contact. I would like to end the conversation on a question that might be a little more provocative, which is there is often considered as a triangle of incompatibility on energy transition on energy security, energy safety and accessibility, and sustainability. This is absolutely key in parts of the world that are still developing. So how do you solve this triangle of incompatibility in Singapore?
Okay, I will just briefly mention 3 areas building on to what I mentioned earlier. So our Singapore ambition has always to be the Asia Center for Sustainability Solution, and that will not change, and we want to do more, building out the 3 areas I mentioned earlier. I think one key area that we can really help is to help shape standards and guidance. So earlier I mentioned about taxonomy. So taxonomy, very important. You mentioned about this European taxonomy and there's now Singapore taxonomy. I think for corporates it's quite a bit to handle if there's so many different taxonomy around the world. So one key area that we really want to do is in terms of exploring interoperability. So what we are doing now is we are mapping the Singapore taxonomy, known as SAT, to IPSF Common Ground Taxonomy, otherwise known as the CGT. So the CGT currently covers the European taxonomy and PBOC's Green Bond Endorsed Project Catalogue. So once this mapping is complete, market participants like yourself will be able to refer to a common set of definition under the new CGT. This will help increase taxonomy-aligned financing solution and facilitate some of the developments which the CGT covers. So we also continue to pioneer on the solutions I mentioned about earlier, FastP and Traction. So these are currently at the pilot stage. We are using 2024 to be the year that we'll test out this project, identify the challenges, the problems, convene industry partners, find out what are the solutions, and come up with new solutions to bring us forward in 2025. So we hope to be able to share some good news with the industry very soon on these topics.
Thank you so much. So it means solutions, standards, and skills. Thank you so much for elaborating on solutions, where in Europe we're mostly focused on standards. Thank you so much. I would like, please, give a round of applause to Chee.
Thank you, everyone.